Hi guys, Nameless Crusader here with the Justice Crew of Oshawa. For today's video, I thought I'd go a little more in depth with the topic of gear selection, as well as armor, your base layers, so on and so forth. So, what you wear as a real life superhero is a strong strategic consideration, as it will enhance some activities while inhibiting others. First topic, and the biggest, is what I referred to in the first video as the gear paradigm. As I had mentioned, it's a four-pointed star chart with the attributes of defense and agility on opposite sides, as well as friendliness and stealth on opposite sides. The gear you choose will affect where you sit on this chart. The more your gear leans to one attribute on the chart, the further away it sits from the other elements, especially the direct opposite. So now I'm going to go a little in depth with each attribute type. So the first one we're going to cover is defense. Any armor you wear, from shin guards to helmets to level 3 bulletproof vests, which are legal in Canada with the exception of British Columbia, without a license by the way, moves your overall gear set in this direction. With defense in mind, the more armor you pile on, the more punishment you'll be able to endure. As you probably guessed, however, you become less and less agile. Your movements become limited, and your ability to chase after people will be greatly reduced unless you're extremely fit. At the end of the day, the main concern for this attribute is your personal safety. This loadout focus is recommended for missions with expected danger, such as patrols through seedy neighborhoods. For an example of defense-based focus, my own gear is built around this approach. The second element, and direct opposite defense, is agility. Less bulky armor means you'll be less protected, but will leave you more able to chase suspects, get through rough terrain, and evade attackers. With agility in mind, being fit is a great complement to this gear loadout focus. Having a loadout that promotes your ability to move around efficiently and effectively usually means you'll be the runner of the group. A good pair of running shoes, climbing gloves, and a lightweight base layer are usually good candidates. The main concern for this attribute is mobility. This loadout is recommended for high mobility mission types such as search and rescue. For an example of agility-based focus, former member Regulus is about the closest that we had on the Justice Crew. The third element on the list is friendliness. Bright colors, aesthetically chosen or crafted masks or other costume accessories, and a cape are all elements that warm up your appearance to everyday passerby. It'll allow for a more friendly viewpoint from people, especially at night, but comes at the cost of the intimidation factor, mobility, and protection offered. You can use this element as a tool to de-escalate any dangerous situations, but only if you really know what you're doing. The main concern of this element is public perception. If you plan on being in the public eye, such as for homeless outreach, volunteering at events, or other passive mission types, this is the recommended gear loadout focus. For a strong example of a friendliness focus, look at my good man, Captain Caregiver. And the last element on the list is stealth. As I had mentioned in the previous video, by stealth, I mean your ability to blend into a crowd and not stick out. It's your ability to be low-key, to observe from the shadows, and not be detected as a real-life superhero until you make your presence known. Dark clothes at night, or regular civilian clothes during the day, with a shamag, scarf, or other such facial covering around your neck that's easy to pull up or down quickly, and is inconspicuous while down. This allows you to switch identities, as it were, quickly when the situation calls for it. Focusing on this attribute is useful for getting the drop on unsuspecting perpetrators, or working without unwanted attention. The main concern for this element is low visibility and the element of surprise. This loadout focus is recommended for low-key observation and investigation missions. For a good example of a stealth focus, there's Arc Guard, the leader of the Trillium Guards of Ontario. To summarize this topic, there's no right or wrong way to pick out your gear selection. It's ultimately your own personal preference as to which direction you want to go. But study your gear closely and figure out where on the gear paradigm you sit, as it'll let you make more informed judgment of what your gear is best suited for. And even then, there's no reason you can't branch off and have multiple loadouts for a variety of situations. For example, my current casual attire I have on is useful for doing videos and daytime patrols. Just make sure you have realistic expectations as to what your gear is useful for and not useful for. So the second topic, and much shorter than the first, but important nonetheless, is the topic of money. So switching gears, let's look at a huge factor when it comes to picking out your gear: cost. It's a primary consideration for assembling your RLSH gear, and admittedly it can get quite expensive if your expectations are high. That being said, you can still build on a budget, and as long as you don't hold extreme expectations for cheap equipment, you should be fine. With the right planning and mindset, you can make it work. A lot of younger RLSH, or those not fortunate enough to have some funds to set aside, have to build on a budget. That's totally fine, just don't expect to be able to get bulletproof armor on a budget. Some stuff, like the library of Aftershocks face masks, are homemade with reinforced paper mache. Other stuff can be found in the used sports goods section of Goodwill for cheap, and Walmart is also a gold mine. Another false assumption is that you need to have everything ready to go all at once. I myself started off rather simple with just a pair of black pants, shirt, and a paintball mask, and shoes. Start off with the bare essentials and work your way up until you have all the gear you need. Adjust your expectations in the field as you continue to upgrade and improve. And that never stops. I just upgraded my footwear and my paintball mask, which always fogs, by the way, is long overdue for replacement. So further expanding on where you can find RLSH gear, here's a few really good sources. You got sports stores, pawn shops, Walmart, military surplus stores, and even places like Mark's Work Warehouse is a good place to look. You'd be surprised where you can find good stuff. Go exploring every time you're in a store and see if anything catches your eye that might be useful. And when in doubt, ask someone. See an existing RLSH with a piece of gear you like? Message them and see where they got it. So moving on to our third and final topic, some examples of gear. So now that we've covered the general information, let's look at actual examples of gear. So the starting point is your base layer. Your base layer is your underlying clothes, the absolute minimum you could be wearing without being literally naked. You could go the route such as myself, with just a pair of combat pants and a t-shirt. You could go with the classic set of full-body spandex, or if you're getting real defensive, a one-piece motorcycle suit. This layer is important, as it has to be usable both during the snowy winter and during the humid summer. Try adding or removing articles of clothing as needed, such as the sweater I wear during the colder months. So moving on to the next important layer, we have your torso gear. If you wear any armor at all, this is the most important place to have armored, as it's the largest body mass and also home to your vital organs. Depending on what level of protection you want, you can have padded sports chest pieces, motocross armor, bulletproof vests, or even plate carriers. A backpack for storing non-critical equipment and outreach packages is also a good thing to have. For your head, if you want to remain anonymous, at the bare minimum you need something to conceal your identity, such as a ski mask, such as myself, a domino or Halloween mask, or a shemagh. Maybe a hat. For actual protection, your options range from paintball masks, military or motorcycle helmets, and even gas masks. For your arms and hands, you're looking at some sort of gloves. You have hard-knuckle gloves, Kevlar gloves, climbing gloves, or even just plain work gloves. It all depends on what you think you need them for. Some wrist guards are also good if you feel you need a bit of extra protection. Elbow pads are usually always good as well. For your legs and feet, you can go multiple routes. Simple running shoes for agility or steel-toed boots like mine for defense are common choices. Moving up the leg, you can add sports-style shin guards for light protection or steel shin guards for heavy protection. having knee pads is usually always good too. So that about covers the basics of different limbs and your main torso. Always try different things. Different things work for different people. I myself took the defensive route. Captain Caregiver took the friendly route. All it comes down to is experimentation and finding out what works for you.